The Jordan River was a barrier, something to be crossed in order to move on to what God had placed before them. Both the children of Israel and Jesus himself entered into the Jordan to come out, to move on to the task that God had put before them. Now let's set the stage for that. They'd left Egypt. They'd gone to Mount Sinai. God had established that Torah covenant with them, and they were now his selected people out of all the people in the earth. And God said, I'm going to use you to be my witnesses so the world may know that I am God. And they then went to the land, but due to their lack of faith, they complained, and God said, all right, if you don't have the faith, go back out in the desert. So they went out into the desert for 40 years, into the wilderness. And now they came back up along the eastern side of the Jordan River and decided to cross right across from Jericho, down near the end of the Jordan River at the Dead Sea. And so there they came, there they stood. Now I like to think of it this way. Out in front of them was the Promised Land, the place God said, this is where you are called to be my witness. This is my life that I've arranged for you. This is the land I'm going to give you, each a little piece of that land, and you can use it to show the world what it's like when a group of people live for God with all their hearts. There it is. They're on that side. Coming out of the desert, they're sheep, they're people, large numbers of people, and they're waiting. In between them is a barrier. The barrier, I think, in that culture represented a couple of things. One, the citizens of Jericho and of Canaan worshipped the fertility gods, particularly Baal. Now, what is Baal the god of? Well, sure enough, water, rain, storm, wind, thunder, lightning, depths of the water. And we read in Joshua chapter 3 that the river was at flood stage at that time. So in a sense, to the Canaanite at least, and the Jericho person like Rahab and her family, that river represented at that moment the fact that they were shielded from the Israelite by their God. We're protected. He's protecting us. And the dividing of the Jordan River was a powerful way that God made a declaration that he was stronger, not just than nature, but he was stronger than the gods of the culture. And it's interesting how many miracles during that wilderness period of Israel's existence were water miracles, which had to impress on their hearts that their God was not only a desert God, their God was not only a God of a limited location and area, but their God was God of everything. And he was bigger than all other gods in the culture. And I'd like to think as we sit at the Jordan this morning, one of the things we ought to reflect on is each one of us faces that moment where we need to decide whether God is the God of everything or whether there are other things that are outside of his control or outside of his sphere of influence. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. So here they come down the bank, down to the edge of the Jordan, and the first group down are the priests carrying the Ark, the place where God's presence was. It says, now the Jordan is at flood stage during the harvest season. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the Ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests who carried the Ark of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. When the nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of Jordan, from right where the priests stood, and carry them over with you, and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. But here's the faith lesson. God says to Joshua, I'll divide the river. It's my power. What stands between you and your calling in life, what stands between you and what I want to do through you, I'll take care of it. But nothing will happen until you put your foot in the water. Now, what you need to appreciate is that it was not a matter of they stood like this on a nice slope and touched one foot down in the water. But due to the nature of the way the Jordan River runs there, when you step in, you're in. And once those priests stepped in, they were either going to be in over their heads or the river was going to divide. Now, if I'd have been one of those priests, I'd have been thinking, God, I'm going to stand right here. You take care of the river, I'll be the first one to the other side. If they would have said that, theoretically that whole nation would still be standing there on the bank. But what loosed, if you will, the power of God was at the moment that they said, God, to live or to die, we've got to make a commitment. And they stepped in over their heads, and they were in, and boom, power of God divides the river. God acts often when people are willing to make that total commitment. And it seems to me that the first step we need to take as followers of those Jewish people in our tradition is we need to be willing to say, God, my life is out there ahead of me. You've called me to all kinds of ministry. I don't even know for sure what it is. But instead of standing here till my life is all together and you've divided every barrier and I can just walk into my life, I think what we need to say is, God, I'm going to make a total commitment to you. I'm going to step in. I'm yours, because I believe when I make the commitment, then God acts. Honestly, I don't think that until you have given your life to Jesus Christ, God clears the way. I think God clears the way when you've taken that step of faith. You're an agent, and it won't happen until you step in.